Hello and welcome to another episode of Marty's Matchbox Makeovers. Today I shall be doing a makeover on this Ford Tractor number 39C, which came out in 1967. I will also be doing a makeover on this number 40C hay trailer, which also came out in 1967. As a point of interest, the Ford Tractor also came out with a yellow engine cover, but this one is all blue. As you can see, it's got only one tyre on 4 of its wheels, and that one is sadly very loose, which is probably why the others fell off. It's going to need a complete repaint. I'm going to have to remove that steering wheel before I paint it, however. The engine cover is loose, and the rear guards are bent in, the right hand one more severely than the left hand one. So to fix all this and to give it a repaint, I'm going to have to split it apart. To begin with, I drill out these rivets using a 3.8mm drill, like this. Now whilst I'm doing this, I am mistakenly of the belief that the rear axle is held in by this plate underneath the model. So I'm trying to separate it here with that specialist separation tool. Not having much luck. I used my spring-loaded center punch on the front rivet that I drilled out. That sometimes yields results like that. It pushes that top assembly out when the spring snaps. So here I'm trying to prise the seats off, and then I realized that in doing so it will be of no benefit to me because the axle actually runs through some captive archways on the lower chassis there. So I give up on that idea. Now I turn my attention to removing the steering wheel without breaking it. So I use some long nose pliers there and try pushing it out initially and then pulling it out at the end. And there I've got the steering wheel out in one piece, which is always a good thing. Now here's the engine cover assembly off, and that rivet is bent, and I don't think I did it. I'm drilling out the center of it with a 1.5mm drill. And the whole idea is that I can then tap it with this 2M screw tap. A tap, of course, cuts a screw thread in a hole. So I've got my tap in this hand chuck and I'm just gently screwing it in clockwise and then backing it out anti-clockwise to cut the thread. You can just see it there up close. And this is the M2 button-headed screw that I shall be using to put this back together. So I just screw that in now because when I paint this model I like to put colour match screws back in on the underside, and they look very much like the original rivets. That's why I do it. So this one here I drilled out before by mistake. I've repaired that again by drilling and tapping, and I've put another screw in there now just to hold everything back together. And I've realised the only way I can get these wheels off so I can paint this model is by old school style, remove the mushroom off the end of that axle. So I'm going to do that now with my Dremel very carefully so I don't accidentally scuff up the yellow plastic wheel hub, which has happened in the past and it's really annoying. So luckily I get away with it. It's always a little bit touch and go, but if you stuff it up, an option is always to turn the hub around so that the undamaged side is facing on the outside. I've done that on more than one occasion, but nobody knows because you never get to see them, unless you take them off again in another 50 years. Right, now I've pulled that apart, I'm going to paint strip this and straighten those guards out. I'm using my standard paint stripper method, however, today, for something different, I'm decanting it into a little shot glass so it's less wasteful. And now I'm going to use this disposable brush and paint it onto the vehicle to take the paint off. Like this. Now this casting is quite intricate, especially around the engine area. There's a lot of little nooks and crannies there, and I have to be mindful of those, and I'm trying to make sure that I give good coverage and tuck that paint stripper in amongst all those engine components. The engine bonnet here, or hood, is less sophisticated and is quite simply just coated all over with the paint stripper, and that's as much as you need. Now, because I've changed my method of paint stripping by tipping it into this little shot glass, there's a little bit left over at the end, so I can actually put that back into the can. Here's a trusty old tool that I have. It's a toothbrush that I have on loan from time to time, and it's my go-to tool for removing softened paint off of the model. I'm doing this in a bath of water there. Not a bath, obviously. It's a disposable water container. It's quite a deep one, so I don't splash everywhere on the bench and make a mess. And more often than not, that paint stripper does a marvellous job. Look at that. All except for the O on the Ford. How annoying is that? Can you see that little tiny bit there? Yeah. Now, the engine detail on this model is not as good as I've seen on other Matchbox models, but nevertheless, I'll get all the paint off. Now, to straighten the guards, I'm going to heat them up with this little blowtorch, a little gas-powered blowtorch that I bought. And I'm doing it on this ceramic tile so I don't melt my placemat or set fire to my table. And straight off the bat, I'm thinking this thing is not working as it should. It's going blue flame, orange flame, blue flame, orange flame, and it's inconsistent, and I don't think it's getting much heat into the model at all. And then it cuts out altogether, and I check it's full of gas. I even top it up, even though it's full, I top it up, and now it won't light. Absolute rubbish. So that's going back to the shop, 100%. Oh, hang on. I keep persevering and it starts, I don't know. I mean, look at this. You can see the flames on, but it's hardly enough to burn the threads on my gloves. I was hoping to put some heat into this and make it easier to bend, but it didn't happen. So instead, I just have to go very, very carefully and pray that it doesn't snap. And by some fluke, I get away with it. Even though it doesn't look hot, their model is quite hot actually. I can feel the heat coming through these gloves. Now at the back there you can see that there's some gaps that have been introduced by flexing the guards. So I'm going to have to fill those with some body filler to make it look nice. Otherwise when it's painted they will stand out like certain parts of dog's anatomy. So I'm using this Humbrol body filler, and I'm trying to compact it into all the little cracks that have appeared, and I'm hoping it's going to look alright when it's painted up. Just looks a bit messy at this stage because I'm just smearing it on. It's only when it's dried and then I can start sanding it that it will actually look any good. So this is halfway through the sanding process, and I go again with some finer emery paper. Quite fiddly to get in there because the seat's in the way. I also resort to using this little steel file here. It's a curved file. I bought a set of them from the hobby shop. They've come in pretty handy from time to time. I don't use them all the time, only very occasionally, because I do have some standard needle files that I use, but this one came into its own today with by filing over that curved rear axle section there. Closed up those seams quite well, I think, and they're going to look good when they're painted. So as usual, to begin with, I will give them a fine surface primer, a coat of fine surface primer from Tamiya. This is always an exciting time for me because you can look at this model and you can see, all of a sudden you can see all of the details. They kind of become defined, and the model takes on a whole new appearance. I mean, look at that there, isn't that beautiful? The Ford written on the front and the headlights and the exhaust manifolds there, I'm guessing. And now I'm doing the trailer. Remember, I was doing the tractor and the trailer today because they complement each other quite nicely, and I thought a 2-for-1 video is better than a 1-for-1. I'll snap those up there on those magnetic clamps and let them dry. And now I turn my attention to the wheels. These wheels are yellow plastic, and they come in a variety of sizes, and they have an annoying little groove in them, and dirt collects in that groove, and rather than painstakingly cleaning them one at a time with tweezers and a toothbrush, I use this little jewellery cleaner that I found in my ensuite, and I chuck them in there and switch it on, and hopefully when I come back in 5 or 10 minutes these are going to look all clean. So I switch it on to the maximum, and instantly the thing starts traversing across the workbench, so I'm going to have to prevent that from happening. So just clamp that temporarily and leave it running to clean those wheels. It's not actually an ultrasonic cleaner as such, but it's more of an agitator. So here's a close-up of some of the details. Like I said before, not some of Matchbox's finest work. I mean, the checker plate looks good, but the engine is a little bit ordinary. And this engine cover, though, looks like it's off a separate model. It's completely, totally better quality. It's a better quality piece than the rest of the vehicle, I think. This trailer is also very crisp. It's got no dents or dings in it. Here's a close-up of the underside. You can see it's the number 40 Hay trailer. And you can see what I mean there about those engine components are very ordinary. I think the rear end of this thing turned out quite good, all things considered. And I'm looking forward to painting them. Now, the trailer here came with a yellow plastic gate or fencing at the end of each end of the trailer, as per the picture there I sourced on the internet. So I've made up this plan to try and 3D print them by just guessing the dimensions from the picture and associating the picture with other parts of the model that I know the dimensions of. Here I am for the first time cutting out all of the support material from this 3D printed fence. The support material is there to prevent it from collapsing in a pool of molten plastic during the printing. So after I've cut off all the excess parts there, I'm actually quite happy with how that's turned out. It may be a little bit agricultural, no pun intended. I mean a little bit thicker than normal, but all in all, for a first attempt, I think it's pretty good. Now, whilst those wheels are cleaning, I'm taking the opportunity to use these bronze wool pads and my drill to give them a bit of a shine. They're all tarnished and look a little bit ordinary. I mean, of course they do, they're 50 years old. More than. These came out in 1967, remember? That looks not bad, but you know what? I gave them a spray of silver paint in the end. Just a light dusting, just to make them look nice. I know I shouldn't have done, I should have kept them original metal, but I couldn't help myself. Right, here's the wheels. I'm now washing off the cleaning solution and checking them out, and they come up gorgeous. They came up really nice. You'd never think that these were 50 years old. Now here's a picture of all the plastic parts of these two models. Now it's time to give the models a coat of paint. I'm using this Tamiya Sky Blue, but I felt that it was just a tad too light, so I'm adding a couple of drops of black. And initially there I thought, wow, that black is so powerful, I think I put too much in. But after giving it a stir, I actually thought that will probably do it. So I thin it with some water-based acrylic thinners. Give my paintbrush a quick burst of thinners as well, just to clean out any crud that might be in there. And away I go. And I must admit, I'm pleasantly surprised here at this gorgeous colour that Matchbox picked for this tractor and trailer. I think it looks absolutely beautiful. And the paint went on superbly first time round, which is very rare for me, in all honesty. And that's the engine cover. That came up nice too. Maybe I went a little bit too thick there, but hopefully when it dries it should level. I've noticed sometimes it looks a bit thick, and then when you check it up an hour later it's kind of leveled out a bit. Now for the main tractor. It's a bit fiddly, this one, to get all over 100% coverage. But looks quite nice. You can see a little bit of a crease there on that guard. I'm hoping the tyres will disguise that when it's back together. Here's the one original rear tyre that I've got, and I looked through my box of tyres and I was amazed at how many different sizes there were in the Matchbox range. But try as I might, I could not find one the same. So because I'm a little bit pushed for time and this makeover is well underway, I thought I'm left with no option but to 3D print some main wheel tyres for the tractor. I found a couple here for the little wheels, but here's a little life hack for you, for people that don't have plentiful supply of tyres available. If you've got your standard yellow hubs like these, the small ones, you can use these roofing screws and take that little rubber seal out that prevents the rainwater from coming through the hole you create when you drill these screws through. And those little rubber seals are perfectly sized for these hubs. And that was a tip I got from Bare Metal HW once, when I watched one of his videos about a year ago when he was doing a combine harvester. So thanks, Bare Metal. A brilliant life hack there for Matchbox makeover people. Now, to 3D print the rear wheels, I'm using SketchUp, and I've downloaded this model of a rear wheel, a tractor wheel, from SketchUp Warehouse, which is it comes free with the app, and people can upload their designs. And I've reduced the dimensions accordingly, and the print looks a little bit rough under the magnification of the camera and under perfect lighting conditions, but I can tell you what, when they're actually fitted to the model, they look damn good, and overall I'm quite pleased with how they turned out. And they're a great sort of interim option for until I can order some proper ones online, or maybe lift my game and improve my 3D printing skills. So I've got all the parts painted and spare tyres and that, and it's time to put everything back together. Now this little section here, I apologise for the camera and lighting. I filmed it in my shed with the door open, so there's no artificial light here. You may notice it's a little bit not as bright as it could be. Well, it's just showing you how I deform the end of those axles using my drill press method. You've probably all seen it before, but it's always good to show again in case you're watching this for the first time. This may be the first video you see of mine, in which case thanks for swinging by and watching. I hope you enjoy it. Now I've got to push down in the centre of that steering wheel so I don't run the risk of breaking the spokes on it. And that goes back together quite well. Now I've done that, I can remove that screw that I put in at the beginning of the video and start to reassemble this tractor. It's only a couple of parts, but clicks together quite well. And if you look under there, you can see that. Now remember that rivet post was bent like a banana? Well, it lines up perfectly, so I can only assume it was like that from the factory. And there's those colour match screws underneath. I think they look lovely. I'll just snap these tyres onto the model. Now I'm putting a couple of original ones on the front there. I guess I'm feeling a bit guilty putting 3D printed ones on a model. So I'm keeping it 50% original with the tyres. This one here, I'm showing what these seals look like if you choose to use them. You can actually get quite a good looking respectable model without the genuine Matchbox tyres by using these seals. And they look a little bit chalky grey at the moment, but here's a special little secret also. Use a bit of tyre shine from your auto shop on a cotton bud and do what you do on your real size car. You shine the tyres up and they end up looking like, at a glance, with the Mark 1 eyeball, you'd think, oh, they're original Matchbox tyres on there. No worries. So here's these 3D fences going in for the first time, and they're not a bad fit. They're quite snug actually, and they hold themselves into position there. I'll just invert it to show you that they don't fall out. And there's for comparison, there's another picture there of the original, so you can compare. I know the colour's a little bit different. I could have painted them, but instead I just went with the yellow plastic PLA mono filament that my printer uses, and it looks close enough. To paint them is just add another hour to the video, and I want to get this out by Saturday night for you guys. The last finishing touches here, I can always ruin it at this stage. I just touch up the headlight lenses there with some chrome ink. So here's a reminder of what we started with: the bent wheel guards, missing tyres, and a rubbish paint job. And this is what it looks like now, and I hope you'll agree that that colour I mixed up is almost a perfect match for the original colour. Now admittedly the tyres under this magnification look a little bit rough with the grain of the 3D printer showing through, but in reality they look not too bad at all. And here you can see on this trailer I've put a little bit of chrome paint on the axle ends just to give it that little bit of bling. And the 3D printed fences there turned out not too bad and function as good as the originals, I would say. I'm happy with that. So here's Elvis, who works at the tyre factory. He's on his weekends, he does some work at the local farm here, carting hay. And here's a shot of the John Deere tractor that I did earlier in the year for comparison. So now I've got the Ford and the John Deere, and they are beautiful little models. They are really welcome additions to my collection. And I would have to say thank you, Michael from Denmark in Nyborg, who sent me the model tractor. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much, Michael. Right, I'm very tired now. I've been doing a lot of forking all day, loading this trailer up with hay. Now I'm just going to settle the load and get out there and feed some cows. I wish I knew where Kevin was today. He would have been a great help, I'm sure, but he seems to have vanished. He always does when there's work to be done. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and until next time, this is Marty saying goodbye. The hell? Every thing I buy is there's no freaking gas flowing out of it. Thing. That's just bullshit. Doesn't want to bend.